Alright, so while you are preparing for your US tax return, there's very, very crucial parts, and a lot of people just ignore this because they think, well, it's just so basic, so simple, nothing could go wrong, a lot of things could go wrong, and let me go through this. So, this section is called personal information. So, basically, the taxpayer personal information is very, very critical if you want to, verify identities and determine eligibilities for deductions and credits. Really, really simple. And depending on the different personal information, different tax law are going to apply to different people, right? So let's go through this. So first is the age of an individual. Why does it matter? You know what? Even though this is called the sensitive personal information, a lot of people may think, well, I prefer not to say it. I prefer not to tell. It's not like when you register for an app or you register for or a job interview, you say, I prefer not to tell. You got like a little option say, I prefer not to tell. Well, you have to tell because the age of an individual means that you get the date of birth and you can impact the dependency status, maybe the like retirement distributions, maybe the taxpayer qualify for the like additional deductions. So for example, if like elderly, you got like 65 years or older, you got like more deduction. So the age do matter. I mean, you can't say I prefer not to say. You have to say it. Okay. So, and of course, another is your marital status. So, you must say, I prefer not to say that, okay? Well, you have to say this because this actually determines the filing status. And you can file differently, right? You can like file the like married joint filing, right? Married filing jointly can often like provide higher income thresholds and more favorable dollar limits, so you can get higher dollar limits for deduction and credits. Okay, why is that? Because think about this: if they're like two-person get married, most of the time the expense will be more. Okay, so you can sort of treat this tax law as a kind of encouragement because I know that getting married and make a living is hard, so I'm going to like adding more deductions and give you like more credits just to make your life a little bit easier. Okay, so basically if you're married you can like find jointly, of course you can find separately. That really depends on your like specific scenario, but you know what, marital status can actually change the filing status, and this is the, like a completely different two paths if you like do not choose correctly. So you have to like fill this piece of personal information correctly and choose the correct path, right? And of course, the marital status, like this is like implications, right? So for example, if you got kids, right, you got like a child tax credits, that's like a whole dependency sort of thing. Okay, so we will talk about that later, but you have to know that marital status, whether you're married or unmarried, if you got child or no child, that do affect the basic information as well as the filing information. Okay, and of course all this it can't be like made up or like you identify as married or unmarried. I know it's really trendy nowadays to say, oh, even though it is like I'm married, but I identify as unmarried, something like that. You know what? This need to have a state issued proof. Okay, so for example, you got like state issued, government issued photo ID that gets this information, like the age, the date of birth, something like that, right? Because you got like state issued photo ID that is called reliable source. Okay, you can't say, oh, I write on a piece of paper and that is my marital status, that's the age of the individual. You can't do that. You need to have a like official source, backup source. The most important like sources is like government issued photo ID or like driver's license, something like that. Okay, you can't make things up, you can't identify, you need to have the paperwork. Okay, so that's the personal information side. And a huge part of personal information side is about nationality and immigration status. Okay? And it's a very, very crucial, and it's a little bit complex. Okay? Even though a lot of professional, like really, do a lot of the seasons of tax seasons, and yeah, sometimes omit certain things I'm going to mention later, right? So nationality basically is, the taxpayer's citizenship or immigration status. Okay, why does it matter? Because it determines how they are being taxed under U.S. law. Because U.S. law got like different categories. So, for example, if you are, say, U.S. citizens, okay, you know what? Unfortunately, U.S. citizens always tax worldwide income. Okay, always mean the test. So yeah, and of course, another status called the resident alien. It's not like an alien, but resident alien means that you are non-citizen, but you meet certain criteria. This criteria is seemingly a little bit complex, but there are like online tools for that. Of course, I'm going to explain that to you. You can even write program to do that. There are tons of apps to do that, but it's just bring you a piece of heart if you know the rule, and you can you use some software, and then you calculate it yourself. You can like verify yourself rather than solely rely on some like a dodgy website. Okay, so I'm going to explain this later, but you know what? Basically, just two tests. One is called green card test. Okay, so whether you are lawful permanent resident, or there is another test called substantial present test. Okay, so if you got enough days in US over a 3-year period, you are like sort of account as the substantial present. Okay, once you are going to like leaving US for a pretty long time, you're going to be treated as resident alien. Okay, so you're being tested that way. So yeah, we will talk about the specific later, but right now, two tests: green card test as well as substantial present test, even though you don't have a green card. Okay, and of course, a lot of entrepreneur or startup owners actually are classified as another category called non-resident alien. Okay, so this is a like default status if like neither test is met. Okay, and so for example, if you you open a company right in the US, and you earn things globally, but you do not currently like have a physical presence or live in the US, you are considered a non-resident alien. Of course, it's a lawful like category as well, but you're still going to pay the tax. But generally, it's more like lenient this way, because you generate tax only on U.S. source income. But the practice, the real life scenario can get really, really complex. So we will talk about that later. But just be aware that this got a lot of arguments and a lot of pitfalls in this specific section, non-resident alien. A lot of people actually got the like companies in US or have like a business with the US companies. You know what? They still going to pay the tax as well, and it's a little bit complex in practice. Okay, non-resident alien. And of course, a lot of even experienced tax preparer or tax professional actually, they don't know this, or they're not familiar with this. There's still the fourth status called dual status alien. Okay? And a lot of people just ignore this, or they don't know how to handle this. You know what? It happened a lot in real life, but sometimes they like mistreat this as a non-resident alien or resident alien. Yeah, a lot of mishap can happen while treating this specific kind of nationality or immigration status person. Okay, so it's called dual status alien. That's when apply in the year of arrival or departure. Okay, this happens in practice a lot, but just because it's happened in that specific year you are not going to apply fully on non-resident alien or resident alien, okay? So just applying a specific year of arrival or departure, and that taxpayer may be like, part year resident, part year non-resident. You know what? That's called due status alien, okay? And specific tax law will apply to that person, and specific practice can be used, and it's so much fun, okay? But you know what? A lot of people just ignore this and treat it in a specific way, and I personally think that that can be improved. That kind of practice can be improved, okay? And you know what? A little bit more information. So for taxpayer, so how does the IRS know that you are a taxpayer? They're going to assign you with the taxpayer identification number. Okay, so every time when you do business, you will want to fill informations. They are going to ask, what's your U.S. taxpayer identification number, right? Okay, so if you are a you are a U.S. citizen, some specific eligible residents, you are most likely to get a SSN number, right? That's SSN stands for Social Security number. That most likely, most of the time, you can just use the SSN for the tax identification number. Okay, so when they ask you for the exact wording is taxpayer identification number, you just enter your SSN. They sometimes may not just say enter your SSN. They just say taxpayer identification number to make it more inclusive for the second scenario, right? So if you got your SSN, you just enter that. Okay, even though they don't get the specific wording of the SSN. Okay, what about you don't have the SSN? Okay, so here's a little bit trick. If you don't have the SSN, and most of the time because of you're not eligible for the SSN, but you got U.S. business, or you still got U.S. income, something like that, you're still going to have the obligation to file U.S. tax return. Still, the IRS issue you a specific number called individual taxpayer identification number. So sometimes we call that ITIN. Okay, so it's like I and then TIN. TIN stands for taxpayer identification number. So ITIN. So SSN and ITIN. So ITIN is for those who do not eligible for the SSN but required to file a tax return. And ITIN is not something that's pretty hard to get, okay? Because, come on, from the IRS point of view, you're going to file a tax, right? So they sort of encourage you to have this because it's like some sort of identification number regardless of your immigration status, okay? Whether you're a resident or non-resident alien, you both can apply for the ITIN, and most of the time you're going to get issued, okay? And you know what? It's not like a work authorization, so they're like pretty cool about it, right? Issuing this only for tax purpose, okay? So once you got your ITIN, and you can doing this tax reporting, okay? So next time when you see that, please enter your tax identification number. When you find any tax related thing, when you see this wording, if you got SSN, you input your SSN. If you do not have your SSN, you can apply for the ITIN, right? And then you input ITIN for that specific field. Okay, that's the very general overview of the personal information, and we'll dive into different section later.